so happy we alive.
In introducing Ethan, I'd like to just simply thank him for creating this journal, this medium for so many researchers here to be able to have a journal of their own, if you will, to publish these works. Otherwise, they're found throughout the literature, but we can thank Ethan for being the visionary of putting this all together in one journal. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ethan Russo.
All right. Someone be so kind as to turn on the slides for me. And maybe we could have the lights down in front a little bit. I want to have a little visual appeal with the old-fashioned technology called Kodachrome. Okay, that was great. Thank you. Dr. Schultes died last week at the age of 86, I'm afraid. He was one of my mentors in the study of medicinal plants. About 1970, he went to Afghanistan to demonstrate that there's more than one species of cannabis. And although he was a conservative Republican, he would testify in court in states where they had laws that outlawed cannabis sativa. And when he would testify that they didn't demonstrate that the material that this person was arrested with was truly cannabis sativa, and he got a lot of people off. His feeling was that drugs should not be outlawed, number one, and that the laws had no scientific veracity. So my salute to him. We're going to talk a little bit about migraine today, but a great deal of what I'm discussing will also apply to other types of pain, especially neuropathic pain or musculoskeletal pain. But my particular research interest has been in migraine, which is the butt of a lot of jokes, but it's a very serious disorder. Let's talk economics. Migraine costs the U.S. economy between 1.2 and 17.2 billion annually in lost productivity, and that was in 1993 dollars. If we look at this, the impact of migraine on the people that have it, you will see that we have migraine is the yellow triangle here, and that in measures of physical functioning, bodily pain, general health, vitality, emotional well-being, and mental health, that migraineurs consider themselves more affected than even people with diabetes. Now, to me, that's a serious illness. Now, let's take a little bit of a historical survey, and normally I take an hour or two for this, but if you're interested, there's a 72-page paper that will be in the Journal of Cannabis Therapeutics, the next issue coming out next week. I will send it to anyone who will email me at erusso@blackfoot.net. I will send you a PDF file, and you can use it any way you wish. But this is Ashurbanipal, who was a 7th century BCE king of Assyria. He had a library that contained tablets dating back to 2200 BCE, including this Sumerian medical tablet. In there, they spoke of an agent called azala or azalu, which was spun into rope. It had 29 medical indications, including some with fumigation, that's a way of saying smoke, and one in which it was bound to the head, presumably for headache. Additionally, we have information from the Hindus. This is a selection from the Atharva Veda, about 1500 BCE, the Indian literature, and they speak of banga. Banga was one of the 5 sacred herbs to allay anxiety. And somewhere probably about the 3rd or 4th century BCE, it came into folk use for treating pain. And even today in India, cannabis is known as a migraine treatment. And here we have a bunch of sadhus hitting on chillums. For medicinal purposes, of course. Additionally, we have information from the Chinese literature. This is a Chuan pictograph, and you can quite see the outline of a shed, and these things over here are nothing more than hemp stalks that are drying in the shed. There are medicinal attributes of cannabis that may go back as far as 3000 BCE. Even today in Southeast Asia, this is a Hmong tribesman, ethnic Chinese. They smoke cannabis and use it as a tea for treating a variety of pains, aches and pains, and specifically headache. The earliest absolute unequivocal written reference I've found to using cannabis to treat migraine is from the 9th century in this book. The dispensatorium is basically a pharmacopoeia. This was written by Sabur ibn Sahl, who was a Nestorian Christian in Persia in the court of the Caliph or whatever. But he wrote 5 medical indications for cannabis, and specifically this one. In the 10th line, I'm sure you'll recognize in the Arabic, the term ma al-shadane, which this was the juice of cannabis, and they put a bunch of other herbs in it, and it was instilled in the nose to treat a variety of aches and pains, including specifically headache and migraine. The terms are right there, and this is important because this is a parenteral mechanism. In other words, it goes directly into the bloodstream. You don't have to swallow it and wait a couple of hours. And that's a problem in migraine because nausea and vomiting prevent good absorption by the gastrointestinal route. Now, we saw this yesterday. Dr. Bierman managed to steal my thunder, but as he said, this is Queen Victoria, and this slide is apocryphal. We have no evidence whatsoever that Queen Victoria smoked reefers. However, we do know that every month of her adult life, she did employ cannabis indica extract to treat her cramps, dysmenorrhea. That was administered by this gentleman, Sir John Russell Reynolds, who was knighted for his service to the Queen and country, and for some 22 years or more, he used cannabis in his practice. As he said, Indian hemp, when pure and administered carefully, is one of the most valuable medicines we possess. He used it to treat migraine both acutely, I have a headache, I take it, additionally preventively, and with great effect. He said this in 1890 after his 22 years of experience. Migraine. Very many victims of this malady have for years kept their suffering in abeyance by taking hemp at the moment of threatening or onset of the attack. Well, he was British. In American medicine, we don't always recognize results from abroad. So here we have Sir William Osler. He was Canadian, but he came to Johns Hopkins at the turn of the last century and was acknowledged as the founder of modern American medicine. In terms of treating migraine, Sir William Osler said, cannabis indica is probably the most satisfactory remedy. Well, that was a long time ago. How about more modern times? This is Solomon Snyder, a neurochemist who I feel will eventually get the Nobel Prize for his work. He also was at Johns Hopkins. In 1971, he wrote a book called Uses of Marijuana, and he said this: "For there are many conditions, such as migraine, headaches, or menstrual cramps, where something as mild as aspirin gives insufficient relief, and opiates are too powerful, not to mention their potential for addiction. Cannabis might conceivably fulfill a useful role in such conditions." Now, those of you who need a bathroom break, this would be a good time. Thomas Dolby once said, "She blinded me with science." I would like to illuminate you with science if I can. And one of the great criticisms this movement has is people will say, there's no scientific evidence. Well, we're going to see it now. There are many reasons that cannabis works for migraine and other forms of pain, and these are a list of them. And these can be broken down. First, serotonergic mechanism.